This is how we hire for $100 million companies, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how to write the ads, that job descriptions, and the process that I'm going to take a candidate through potentially so that they can feel comfortable moving forward with us. And this is usually how we'll hire world-class talent that is very expensive and very hard to come by, even also for starter positions as well as some different strategies that let's say that you're hiring going wide or going deep in terms of lots of platforms or just going deep on one platform. All right, let's begin. So on average, when a large company will hire for someone, they'll end up spending anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 just hiring one person, and that goes into training, that goes into the logistics of it, it goes into onboarding, it goes into paying a recruiter per se. So there's all these things that you can spend money on in terms of hiring, and a lot of people will spend so much money on hiring. So getting it wrong can actually be really costly for your business, especially at a high level. First thing, let's talk about the job description. A lot of people get this wrong. They say, you will do this, you will do that, and it's just a to-do list, and it's like if you read this thing, you're a man, this would not be a fun place to work. It's just a task list. Instead, what I like to do is I like to reframe it and make sure that I'm talking to the right person, as well as the right person understands that this is the job for them. So let's say that I'm hiring someone who is at an executive level. So let's say it's a vice president. And let's say that that vice president is going to be leading in something like customer success. If I say VP of customer success, that's going to probably lean for someone who's more experienced. And so when you put vice president of customer success, that person is more likely your ideal candidate than someone who has experience or maybe has been a vice president, or someone who's aspiring to be a vice president and is qualified to do so. That person is going to see the job description and instantly think, that is for me. I want to click on this ad and move forward. Because when you have your job description, the headline is the first thing that they see. And if they don't think that it's for them, even if it lands in their inbox, whether you're using a recruiter or some sort of paid platform tool, they're going to see it and they're instantly going to say, this is not for me. I'm not even going to look at the rest of this job description, even if you have an amazing job description. So getting your headline right is the most important thing. And the way that you write a job description is the same way that you write an ad. So if you're good at advertising, you're probably going to be good at writing job descriptions. And if you're great at writing job descriptions, you're probably going to be good at advertising too, because your employees are your first customers before anyone else. You have to sell to them every single day on why they should continue to work for you. So in the job description, first things first, the headline, to make sure that you know who you're speaking to. Sit in the shoes of the person you want to talk to and say, what would this person understand and what would this person resonate with? And don't make it some weird name that is really obscure. Let's say that you use an abbreviation of, let's just say that you call it junior sales consultant. But then you put JSR in the title and no one knows what that means necessarily. So instead of doing JSR, you would just say junior sales rep, maybe, if that's what if you're really going for sales, then go with that. So try to put it in terms that they will understand and identify with, not something that is internal to the company. Even if you do have internal company language, which you should have your own vocabulary and dictionary inside the company. They'll learn that when they get onboarded later. So that's the headline of the job description. Now, after that, I move into the company and I say, well, this is the company. This is how we feel. This is what we are like. Because your company culture is either by design or by default. And when someone comes into your company, what you want them to know and understand is, this is our company culture and you are going to adopt our company culture. We do not want to bring your company culture into here. As an example, I'm very family oriented, and so our company is being designed around being family friendly. I know companies that are completely opposite. They are not family related. No one there has children. And so in that case, if you have a company like that where no one has kids, it can become almost even a hostile work environment, because no one understands that, yes, you do have to take time and spend time with your family. So part of the company is talking about what is it like to work here? What are you guys doing? Let's move on from company. So that's like, this is what we are, this is where we are in the marketplace, this is what we do. Then you move over to the job. And this is where you can get into a little bit of the bullet point, maybe the dry stuff of, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing this. However, I also want to say that it's extremely important that you get very clear on what you want this person to do. Now, when you build an organization, you should build an org chart and put people in it, not just put people in it and then just try to figure it out later. You may have to if you're just starting off, but that's what I mean by job. So you want to be clear when you build out your org chart, what are the KPIs and responsibilities for each one of these people? And so by this point, you should already have a decent org chart built out and you should know exactly what their job is. As an example, if I'm hiring for a YouTube editor, I might say, I am expecting a 7-minute AVD. So that would be average view duration. Now, this is a case where you could probably use an abbreviation because if they've seen the job and they're familiar with YouTube or they're good at their job, they want to know what they're talking about, they should know what some of the abbreviations may be. So this is where you can get really specific and very clear in terms of the job. I'm expecting you to have a 7-minute AVD editing retention rate on your videos, or I'm expected to edit 1 video every single week, as an example, if I wanted to get really clear. Another example of that was maintaining a 35% or above close rate, and then as well as what type of traffic they're dealing with. So let's say that you're hiring a sales rep, the way that you hire inbound sales versus outbound sales is different. And the way that you hire business to customer, so like gym sales, is different than the way that you would hire outbound for B2B Fortune 500. Those are 2 different job descriptions, and they're 2 different sales reps. And you also may be hiring an early stage or late stage of your company. So let's say that you're an early stage, you may have to develop the process a little bit more, and you may not have the process yet figured out. So what that means is you're going to have to err on the side of experience, and you're probably going to want to find someone who is experienced in that thing in your industry at that level. So there's like really err on the side of caution. But if you're sort of late stage and you've already figured it out, then what you can do is you can say, listen, we need a little bit less experience because we have the training program built out and we have how we're going to be doing this. So that's what I think about when I write the actual job itself. Then the last part, which is extremely important, mission, vision, and values. It looks like a W. I meant to put 2 V's next to each other, but hey, it turns out to be a W. So mission, vision, and values. This is what is the mission that we're on? What are we doing? As an example, building a brighter future for our people could be an example of a mission statement. Vision is, what do you want that to look like? Well, we want to do that while being the gold standard, right? As an example, being a premium product. Or are you Walmart? That's okay. Just know what position that you sit in the marketplace. And then the values. We're going to be family oriented. We're going to be great at what we do. We're going to be excellent. We got to be absolutely dialed in. So we are the premium option. We are family oriented. So that's what I mean when you say the company job description, mission, vision, and values. So you have the headline, you now have that figured out. You have the company of what you do, as well as how they're going to do it. That's an example. And mission, vision, values. So that's saying this is how we decide that we're going to play by the rules here. Now let's go into process. So the process is one thing where you're like, most people get this wrong. A good hiring process is like a good sales process. And usually when I go about it, I'll have like an initial call. There's a couple different stages. When they have the actual ad, if they're accepted, I'll move them to the next stage, or I'll, working through a recruiter, we'll move them to the next stage. You can also use really great softwares. I use plenty of softwares that manage it, and it's essentially like a sales pipeline. If you look at a CRM or a hiring platform, they kind of look the same. So the actual process will be, they've been accepted, we like their resume, we like their application. Now let's move them over to a 15-minute call. This is where someone's going to give them a call. At some point, you're going to schedule a call just saying, hey, we'd like to get to know you a little bit more. Here's about the company, here's about the role, here's what we find interesting. And then they may say, yes, this is a good fit, no, this is not a good fit. At that point, you can move on to stage essentially 2, where you have more of a technical, hands-on interview. Will this person work out? Does this person know what they're talking about? And the way that I like to manage those meetings is I like to have them do the most of the talking. You definitely don't want to do most of the talking because at the end of the day, the interview is about them. And I'll ask them to solve a problem that I'm currently facing in this role. Let's say that we go back to the YouTube, I'm hiring someone for YouTube editing. I would say, right now we have an average view duration of 2 minutes. How would you solve for this so that you would get a 7-minute average view duration? And then they may go talk through, you want them to solve the problem for you. And ideally, for me, I'll go for as much volume of hiring and just talking to as many people in a short amount of time as possible so that I can learn as much as possible and connect the dots. So ideally, I can hire back to back and have a bunch of appointments and just learn and understand and listen to people during the interview. They should ideally be teaching me how the job should look, even if I don't necessarily know yet. So that's what I mean by process and understanding their skills and capabilities. You should come away with a lot of that. Now, you should already know, and if you have any questions, you should just ask AI, hey, what should a good person in this role, what KPIs should they manage? They should have 3, maybe 1 to 5 KPIs max. What KPIs should they be responsible for? That's an example. And then once you get very clear on the KPIs that they're responsible for, then you can ask them that in the second interview. Now, this is after the second interview. Let's assume that they've passed, they've done a good job. They should be talking to the CEO. This is the person who leads and casts the vision. And I know people that have thousands of employees and still have the final interview with a candidate to this day to make the decision. And your job as a CEO is to make sure that you are guiding the journey and vision of the company and keeping everyone in line. And so that's why it's really important, so important that the CEO, this is not really a task that you can or should delegate if you want to be really, really intentional about your company culture. So that's the process that I'll put them through. The next part is communication. So this is what exactly do they see? On average, when an employee will go look at your company, they want to know, is this going to be beneficial for my career or not? Let's just say as an example, McKinsey, which is a very large consulting company. When you're going through their process, if you're a very talented individual, they will get other companies to call you that are very prestigious, like another, let's just say, private equity company. Hey, yes, you should work at McKinsey. It's going to be great for your career. And so then it aligns the incentives of McKinsey, which is it's a talent agency is essentially what it is, and hiring really good talent. And they do that by having other people call the candidate and say, hey, you think it's a great option for your career to work at McKinsey. It's a prestigious, and it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you have prestigious people who want to work there, which means that prestigious people are going to work there, which means they can charge higher prices, making their brand even more prestigious. And it's just a really good loop. Same thing with Harvard, right? So that's an example of communication. What are you communicating with your brand, as well as what are they going to look up? So I like to really go in depth when I'm working with companies and build out their landing page and their online presence for employees. So this will go into, I will build a LinkedIn or Indeed page that is just for hiring, and I'll get all the employees to leave reviews, hopefully. And here's the difficult part. If you have a bad work culture, you're not going to solve bad work culture by sending everyone to go review your Indeed page, because you just can't fix a broken culture. Like you have to change it before you can start hiring. Or you could start hiring, and then you could try to like weed out the bad people if you have a really toxic culture. But if you have a toxic culture, then no amount of hiring in the world is really going to save you from essentially, what could be a company's own direction or decision. So this is why I like to have a really positive company culture. And I don't mean the weird HR stuff of talking about your feelings. I just mean being supportive and engaged in terms of the type of atmosphere that you have for an employee. So communication. Now, the other thing that are communicated is, that's when people go look up on Indeed the page and showing maybe a hiring video, as well as people happy. You want a collective, a community together. And this is where being really intentional about your company culture becomes even more important, because it's the subtle things that are communicated to a potential employee that really will make or break the difference when you're hiring world-class talent. If you want to get average people, then sure, you can write average ads and you can spend an average budget. So once I have the actual presence of the company built out with maybe a hiring video, a really good landing page, as well as some company reviews on Glassdoor or other places, there is technically one way you could get around some bad company reviews, is you could send out a screener, let's just say on Google Forms, that's what it's called. Google Forms, and in the Google Forms, you just say, how do you like working here? And then if it's like a 4-star or above out of 5, then yes, send them on to please leave a review. Or if it's below, then just say like, great, like give us some feedback and we'll get better. So that's an example of really good communication and really good marketing to potential employees, especially at a high level. The other part of communication is, what are you saying to them? So this is everything that they can search up and find about your company, and they're probably going to find something bad, so you might as well just address it ahead of time and just tell them and be upfront. The next part is direct communication. So you want to be as fast as possible, and and you can still respond fast to someone without hiring too quickly. So you can communicate expectations clearly, you can communicate fast with them. That's what employees like, especially potential employees. They feel like if you're communicating with them, it's probably going to continue throughout the time that they're working for you. So that's what I mean by communication and clear, direct communication. You should always set expectations for next steps during the process, so they never feel like they're lost or not sure what's going to happen next. Even if that next step is like, hey, we're going to review this application with the team, we're going to screen a couple of other candidates, and then we'll let you know in a day, you're still setting really good expectations. So that's an example of communications. Then once I've decided, yes, this person's a good fit, they have passed the technical interview, they're really good at their fitting our company culture, our mission, vision, and values, then I'll start off with a 90-day project. I want to test, they want to test us, we want to test them. So hey, let's work together for 90 days on a paid project. Let's just see how you work. And that's really what it comes down to when it comes to, like, we want to make sure you get this right, because if they're not a fit, it's better that you know in 90 days rather than dragging it on. And as a bonus, here's a couple of things, a couple of really good tips. If you're going to go wide and if you're having a hard time getting more candidates, post on multiple platforms and optimize for multiple platforms. But the platform that you post on will depend on the type of job that you're hiring for. If you're hiring for an executive C-suite level, you might be on LinkedIn or you might be on X. Let's say that you're hiring for someone who is an entry-level tech, they might not even know what LinkedIn is, so you can go on like Indeed or other job job platforms instead of that. I've even heard of Really Good Talent, example, doing radio ads. That's an example of a way that people hire. So there is possible, it is possible. And then for that landing page that I'll build out, usually there's plenty of softwares. You can just search up hiring software essentially that's really good. I would send them to a custom landing page. That way I can track where candidates are coming from and where they heard about us. And that way I can say, okay, well, radio is really good for hiring the people that stay around the longest and are the most qualified, so I'm gonna go in on that. Now, there's another way that you could do this. I've heard this guy who's doing about 150 million a year in HVAC, and he was having a really hard time hiring techs. So what he did was he created a training program, which was beautifully executed. And this training program, you would have to pay to be a part of the university. You have to pay to learn how to be an HVAC technician. And by the end of it, I think they paid about like $2,000 to learn how to go to be an HVAC technician. You would pay there, you would be certified, and if you passed with a high enough score, the owner of the actual, because it was an HVAC company that started the university, the HVAC company would skim off the best talent for their own business, and then the talent that didn't pass a certain threshold, but still passed, they would actually sell that candidate to someone else. So it was a beautiful way to hire. Now, let's say that maybe you're not in a place to start a university. What you can do is you can say, we are looking for unpaid or low-paid interns to come in and learn the craft through a sort of mentorship program. That's a great way that you can kind of, let's say we're having a really hard time hiring people, then bring people in and train them up and just say, listen, you're getting experience and we would love for you to have a place to work. This is where also if you have a really strong company culture and really good training in place, comes in handy. This will work well. If you have very loose standards and everything's organic, everything's kind of disorganized, this is gonna be a little bit difficult for you. I probably wouldn't necessarily do the apprenticeship program, but you could do a university if you wanted to get things in order. So those are two different ways. Going deep is I'll usually spend a ton of money in a short amount of time on the hiring platform itself. So let's say that it's LinkedIn. I'll spend a very large budget in a short amount of time. Let's just say it's $1,000 or $2,000 on the platform if I need to spend that much to get the most amount of qualified candidates as fast as possible instead of taking a really long time. Because if I take a really long time, what's going to happen with the length of time is I'm going to get some candidates who may be really good, but I've already found a job. So if I just spend it all at once, I'm going to talk to all the qualified people and solve this one problem. So that is an example of how to find really good talent, how to hire them. And if you found this interesting, there's another video that you might like right here.